When you go to set your color sequence in your software, it's really helpful to colorize the thread cone display that's in the software to match what's on your machine. That'll do a few things for you. One, it'll allow you to automatically set your color sequence. But two, even if you're not automatically doing it, you can look at your software, you can have it display in the colors that you really want to be sewing in instead of right now those default grays that we're looking at. So to do that, I would go into my color sequence, and you can set the color sequence right now by clicking on the color that you want and then clicking on the needle that you want it to sew in. But with everything being this gray, that's a little bit difficult to tell what's going on. If I want to actually get to see what I want to be sewing, double click or double tap on the cone that you want to change, and it'll bring up this window where you are able to, on the left, select which thread chart you want to use. And then from the selected thread chart on the right, it will display the rainbow of colors that you have available to you. Now, if you want to narrow those colors down, you could type in, say, a name. So if I start to type in red, you'll see that it shortens not to what we would consider red, but what has been labeled with the name of red. So we have tomato red and brick red and Christmas red and candy apple red. We have all the ones that have the word red in it. Other things that we could do, we could type in the actual thread number. So if I look at my thread tree, you can look on the top of the cone and you can see a color number. So right here I'm looking at 1773. So if I go back into my software and I type 17, you can see it start to narrow, 7, and there's a whole bunch of them that are 1773. I go all the way down to that one. I can select that one and it will change that cone of thread. And I'm currently using that cone of thread, so as soon as I changed it in the software, it changed my pairs because that's the cone that I was using for that. So then I can go ahead and go through, I can click on 2, and I can continue on. So if I look at needle 2 on my machine, it is 1945, so I can go back into my software, I can type 1945, select it, and I can continue on, selecting the cone of thread and then changing the color for it. So all I'm doing is typing in the color number from the top of the cone, and I'll go through all 16 needles this way. So now that I've got my thread tree colored, I'm going to confirm out of that screen. In the color sequence window, below you've got this little bar, and that's going to show you the color from the design itself. If you have a design that does not have color information stored in it. So OFMs can contain color information. They can contain lots of extra information as well as just the stitches, but one of the big ones is the color information. So this one is asking for 984 arc poly. Arc poly is not even a thread that's around anymore. That's how old this design is. So you can see what the digitizer intended on that bottom strip. And then above that, you can see what I'm planning on using. I'm planning on using needle 1, which is this autumn gold. If I wanted to change it, I could. I just select this color. It's a little bit larger. When it's selected, it'll show you kind of bold around the one that you're planning on using. If you wanted burgundy pairs, you could make burgundy pairs. If you wanted orange ones, you could make them orange. And then over on the right, it's changing every time I do that. So let's go back to that nice gold color. Here we've got the leaves, and they're supposed to be a slightly darker green. We've got them going a much darker green. Here we've got a yellow, and here we've got a black. Once I confirm out of here, it shows up on the main screen in the colors that I chose. Now over on the right, it's showing needle number 8. That does not mean that that's what it's going to start with. It just means that that is currently what my machine is on. It's right now on needle 8. If I were to move this over, and go back into my software, it will now show a different needle. So now it's on needle 7. Needle 7 is that really kind of deep royal blue, and that's what it's showing here as well. It did not change my color sequence. It's only showing me my active needle. Other things you may want to add to your color sequence. You may want to add an applique command or a pause command. What those commands will do is make the machine wait for you. So if I have an applique command, it's going to stop the machine wherever it meets that command, and it will feed the frame out and it'll wait for me. It'll feed the frame out as far as it can go with the needle still in the hoop limits. When you press the green button, it'll feed the frame back in and start sewing. The pause command will do the same thing, it just won't feed the frame out. So if you just want the machine to wait for you for a minute, if you have a really long design and you think you need to change the bobbin in the middle of it, put in a pause command in the middle of it, the machine will stop, wait for you. You can go in, change that bobbin, and then hit go and you're ready to go, and you don't have to worry about running out in the middle of a fill or something like that. Lastly, if you have a design that just has 2 colors over and over again, you can always drag this recursive down onto one of those. If you want to get rid of this, you can just drag it off. And then let's take this back to the way that it was. Select the color, select the cone of thread I want on it. Color change down here, cone of thread up here. If I want to drag an applique command into the sequence, I just drag it down. When I get a little plus, I let go. If I want to remove it, I click on it in the sequence and I drag it off. Same thing with the pause command. If you want to use one of these special effects, you can drag them onto the color block, and then the color block will actually change to reflect that it has it on there. So here it just looks like thread, here it looks like it's 3D. I'm going to click and drag that off of there to remove it. Same thing with this one. Click and drag it off of there to remove it. Now, with these 3D foam or kind of fancy stitching, the design has to be digitized for that. That's not just something you can do in the color sequence. Go ahead and confirm out of there, and now you have your color sequence set.